going to mute everyone. Elaine, I still can't see you, but can you see?
I've gone into my video settings. There's a good one here. Touch up my appearance.
We could all do with that one, couldn't we? Crikey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just can't do it.
Well, don't worry. Can you see me?
I can see everyone.
You can see everyone, but it's fine. It's absolutely
That's probably
fine.
the best way around. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think yes. If there's anything I need to see, but I think you'll be fine. So anyway, lie down onto your backs, everyone. And Elaine, what you could do is leave and join again. That might be a good idea. I know you can't hear me. I know you can't speak at the moment, but it might be good just to leave the meeting and rejoin, and then your video might come on. So settle down onto your backs and just have a moment arriving on a Monday morning. Just, you know, Sheila, you've had that little accident last week, so you're probably very aware of how your body's feeling today. And just all of you, just taking a couple of moments to lie down quietly, to just notice if there are any particular aches or pains today, or whatever presents itself to you in terms of how your body's feeling, how your energy levels are, anything else that arises. And then maybe have a couple of big sighing breaths, and just that as we exhale with a big sigh, there's that opportunity to let ourselves settle and rest a bit more heavily on the floor. You can let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. We're just easing your head from side to side. And as we usually do, we didn't last week, we all started standing up, which is probably a bit of a shock, but as we usually do, we're starting just with some easing out things lying down. So yes, exactly, Aditi, when you're ready, if your legs are long, you can bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor. And start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And just see how that feels in your body right now. And again, Sheila, if you are feeling a bit creaky, just keep it small, keep it easy. Keep your shoulders and arms heavy and relaxed on the floor. So letting the knees tilt to the right and to the left. Good. I'm doing that a couple more times. And then settling in the centre. So settle in the centre and keep your right knee bent and lengthen your left leg out on the floor. And then you're going to do exactly the same movement of letting your knee tilt to the right and to the left, but just the right knee now. So it's going to feel a little bit different. So it's going to be more about the movement of the leg in the hip joint than about the whole of the body coming along with the movement. So see, you can have a little play around with it. So see, can you do a movement where your pelvis stays quiet on the floor and it's just the right leg moving to the right and to the left? So is that possible to do a movement where you're not letting the rest of the body come along with the movement? So it's probably going to be smaller. And you can also do a bigger movement where you do let the rest of your body be involved in this movement to a certain extent. So it might be that as your knee goes out to the side, you feel that your pelvis comes along a little bit. And as your knee goes to the center, it might be the same as well. Okay, and then settle your foot on the floor. So stop the rocking, settle your foot down so it feels planted. And you're going to come to that foot pressing movement. So as you exhale, pressing into that right foot, letting the right side of your pelvis come away from the floor. And see how that feels. And repeat this a few times. So press into the right foot, let the right side of the pelvis come away from the floor, and then let the right side of the pelvis come back down onto the floor. And it may be that as the pelvis starts to lift, so Sheila, you might find that as the pelvis starts to lift, this is when you start to feel more tightness around the lower back, possibly, or into the ribs. And that's, you know, just go easy with it. But also this movement is helpful because we're starting to release things. So perhaps 2 or 3 more times. Pressing into that right foot, letting the right side of the pelvis come away from the floor. Good, and then settle the pelvis on the floor, and you're going to fold your right knee into your chest. And hold around the top of your knee or the back of your thigh, so whichever you prefer. And have a few breaths there. You could, if you like, stretch into the heel of the long leg, so the left heel. So you could, yeah, keep the right leg sort of quite quiet and passive, but you could stretch into your left heel. You could spread your toes in the left leg. You could point your toes up towards the ceiling and then let that leg relax. Good. And then actually what you're going to do from here is keep that right knee in towards your chest, but bend your left knee and stand your left foot on the floor. Good. And then let your right knee come out to the side and your right ankle come onto your left thigh, close to your knee. That's it. Good. And then you're going to start to rock side to side on your standing foot. So this is on your left foot. Good. So Elaine, I still can't see you, and I hope you can hear. What's going on today? Good. So a little bit of rocking side to side on your standing foot, seeing how that feels. All looks very nice. Just once, twice more in each direction. And then pause in the middle and slide that right leg further across the right leg. So you're now crossing your knee over. That's it. Good. And do carry on with a bit more rocking here. So how does this feel with your knees crossed? That's it. So if we've moved on from perhaps a sort of half lotus position to a, what was I going to say, eagle legs position, or cow legs even. Similar. Okay, so a little bit more rocking from side to side, and then keeping your knees crossed. You're going to see how it feels to fold both knees into your chest. Nigel, you don't need to do that if you think that's not going to be good. When you fold your knees into your chest, you can hold around the top of your knees or around the back of your thighs. Yeah, if you're holding around your knees, Rashmi, hold around both knees. That's it. And you could try, Rashmi, you could try holding around the back of your thighs and see. Yeah, that's it. Good. Yeah, just have a few breaths with the knees folded in towards you. And then from here, Nigel, you might just want to lengthen your legs out on the floor. If your knees are folded in towards your chest, you could take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. And you could add your arms in if you like. That's it. Shake out the arms, shake out the legs. Very nice. And then from there, everyone lie long on the floor, lengthen out your legs, and just see how it feels to lie long after doing all these other things with our legs. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then when you're ready, leave your right leg long and bend your left knee and stand your left foot on the floor. So come back to our very first movement, which was tilting the left knee to the right and to the left and seeing how that feels. And again, remembering there's sort of a couple of things you could do here. You could do a small movement where you're letting your pelvis stay very settled. Your knee is just tilting to the right and to the left. So it's just the leg moving. And you could also, if it's comfortable, explore a larger movement where you feel that your pelvis comes along a little bit more with the movement of the leg. Good, so a couple more times, either a large movement or a small movement. Knee tilting to the right and to the left. And then stop tilting your knee, settle your foot down onto the floor. You're going to come to the foot pressing movement. So when you're ready, as you exhale, pressing down into your left foot, letting the left side of the pelvis come away from the floor. Sheila, I wonder whether you would benefit from your foot being a bit more out to the side and slightly further away from your bottom. I'm just thinking, make it easy for yourself. If it feels too far away, move it back in towards you. But I would, yeah, just given how you're feeling. Aditi, I'm wondering whether your foot would benefit from being a bit closer into you. It might just be the angle I'm at. Good. That's very nice. So just a few more times. How does it feel? Rashmi, think about sending your knee forwards over your foot. Don't let the knee wander over towards the right. Good. So just once or twice more, pressing into the left foot. And then letting that left knee fold in towards your chest, holding around the top of your knee or the back of your thigh. So you're just really thinking about that leg being heavy, settling towards your chest. If you like, you can stretch into your right heel. You could spread your right toes. Yeah, so sort of keep the left foot quiet. You can be a bit more active in the right foot, but with the intention of the right leg eventually feeling heavy so that you can just let it go on the floor. And let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Feel how we've got these different sensations in the front of the two hip joints, folding in the left side, opening out in the right side. And then when you're ready, you're going to bend your right knee and stand your right foot on the floor. Okay, so right knee bent, right foot standing on the floor. No, left knee stays in towards your chest. That's it. Bend the right knee, stand the right foot on the floor. Then the left ankle, no, the left knee goes out to the side. Your left ankle comes onto your right thigh, close to your knee. That's the one. And then you're rocking side to side on your standing foot. Good. Good. And so seeing how this feels on this side. And we can often notice, and Sheila, you might, depending how you fell, if you fell a bit unevenly, we can often notice quite big differences on the two sides when we do these movements. So one side may be stiffer than the other. So rocking side to side on that standing foot. A couple more times. And then slide your top leg further across. So you're now crossing your left leg over your left knee over your right thigh. That's it, or knee. That's it. Good. And then carry on rocking it once more on your standing foot and see how this feels. So yes, it's perhaps coming to our sort of cow legs feeling, isn't it? Where then maybe there's a little bit more of a feeling of stretch through the outside of the hip joints. And then from here, Nigel, maybe just carry on rocking. If you want to, you can fold your knees in towards your chest. That's it. Hold around the top of your knees or the back of your thighs, whatever you prefer. Yes, some of you are doing a little bit of rocking from side to side. You can definitely do that if you like. Whatever feels good. And then if your knees are folded into your chest, you can have another couple of breaths there. Then you can lengthen your legs up towards the ceiling, give them a shake out. Nigel, you can lengthen your legs out on the floor. Let the breath come in. Yeah, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. If you've taken your legs up to the ceiling, then lengthen your legs out on the floor again. And just lie long on the ground. So in a moment, we're going to come off our backs, come over onto hands and knees. Elaine, because I still can't see you, I'd really appreciate you if you can just check in and let me know that you are actually there. Unmute yourself for a moment as you come over onto hands and knees. You haven't got your name either, you're just a blank square at the moment. So come on to hands and knees. It's going to be a bit noisy for a minute because the Monday morning bin collection. So I've got Otto, I think I might move him, he's just sitting behind, come on. He's just sitting behind the laptop and I feel he's in danger of knocking it over. So Elaine, are you there?
I'm there, yes.
You're there. Okay, good. I'm very pleased you're there. Good. Just do speak if anything doesn't make sense. So come on to hands and knees. We're just going to do a little bit of cat and then sort of take it from there. So let's do a little bit of cat, settling on hands and knees. How does it feel? Rounding the back to the ceiling, dipping our spine down to the floor. So these little movements that we do probably every lesson, they're very helpful in just giving us this sense of where we are today. How does it feel when we dip our spine down to the floor? How does it feel when we round our back to the floor? How does it feel to be on hands and knees? And so when I was practicing before this class, I sort of felt I wasn't really quite here. My brain was still back lying down. So if that's the case for you, it might be that you need to come and have a few quiet breaths in child pose. So just make that decision now. Are you happy doing some cat movements? You could also do some tail wagging movements. Or do you need to have a few quiet breaths in child pose? In which case you could round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels and just settle for a moment quietly. Or you could do the same in kneeling. So just this sense, do you need to be moving or is it good to be still for a moment, feeling your breath within you? And from wherever you are, whether it's kneeling, child pose, cat, we're going to be coming into lunge and we're going to be doing those sort of forward and back movements in lunge, which echo cat a little bit. So from hands and knees, bring one foot forwards into lunge. And you might need to walk your back foot away a little bit. And then untuck your toes in your back foot. So we can do these toing and froing movements where we ease back. We keep our chest close to our thigh, we look back. So our back is rounded, like in the rounding up cat. And then we can come forwards into lunge, up onto our fingertips. And then the upper back flattens out a little bit. So it's got an echo of the dipping down cat, but just a little echo. And yes, moving between these two possibilities and having a sense of how the spine is moving a little bit like in cat. So as we go back and we look back, we let our spine round. As we come forwards up onto our fingertips, can we feel the spine sort of flattening out a bit in the upper back? Make sure you're not overdoing it in your neck. It might be that you would like to have a couple of breaths staying in lunge. And when you're staying in lunge, your focus, you might want to tuck your back toes under. And the focus now is more on this feeling of the weight of the pelvis dropping down towards the floor. Probably a little bit less about what's going on in the spine. But obviously it's what you feel in your own body. And then we'll swap sides and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So swap sides on hands and knees. We will come to dog pose in a moment, don't worry. Bring the other foot forwards. Again, walk your back leg away if you need to. And then have your back foot flat so that you can come into these little easing backwards and forwards movements but with this sense of how can it feel a bit like cat in your spine. So as you rock back, as you ease back, chest near to your thigh, you're looking backwards. You feel your back rounding, upper back particularly. As you come forwards and be coming onto your fingertips, feeling the back flattening out a little bit. And then again, rocking back. Perhaps if you would like to have a few breaths in lunge, you could stay there, maybe tucking your back toes under now. You might be down on your hands rather than up on your fingertips. Just feeling that sense of giving the weight of the pelvis to the floor. Now we're going to come into dog pose, but I wanted us to come into dog pose in, actually no, just come into dog pose however you want to now. We're going to do a different way into dog pose in a moment, but let's do, yes, come into dog pose in your own way. So if you want to step from lunge into dog, you can. Otherwise from hands and knees, just so perhaps as we normally come into dog pose, big handprints on the floor, toes tucked under, rocking the hips back, picking the knees up off the floor and seeing how your dog pose feels. And then, yeah, we'll do a slightly different way into dog in a moment. So, yeah, you might be wanting to bend both knees, one knee, letting your head go. Good. What's going on with the arms? Can you rest through the arms? So Aditi, can you feel a bit wider across the back of the shoulders? That's nice. Good. Good. And I thought we're going to, when we come down from dog, we're going to do our puppy pose movement. So this is about that really finding some movement in the upper back. So come down from dog and maybe just, if you're not sure, have a look at me. So the first puppy pose, we have our forearms on the ground and then we possibly need to walk the knees back a little bit because what we're doing in this one is we're dipping down. So very elegant position with our bum up in the air and the nose resting down on the floor and the upper back dipping down. So yes, see how it feels to come into that first puppy pose. And if I can, yes, some of you I can have a look. So we're dipping the spine down to the floor with the bottom sticking up in the air. So looks like possibly, Rashmi, you need to walk your knees back a little bit more now. So the knees should be under the hip joints, not further forwards than the hip joints. Yeah, and the chest is dipping down to the floor. Good. So Rashmi, I can't quite see. It might be good if you were to go the other way in the room so I could see you side on. You don't have to be on your mat for a moment. Just go side on in the room so I can just have a little look at you. That's it. And then dip your chest down to the floor. So rock back a bit more with your shoulders. That's it. Your knees need to be further back. Yeah, your knees need to be further back. That's it. And then dip down. Rock your shoulders back. That's it. Yeah, that's puppy pose. Good. Now, it's quite intense. Rashmi, have another couple of breaths there. But what we're going to do in between each puppy pose is come up back onto hands and knees. And you're going to round your back to the ceiling in the rounded up cat and have a couple of breaths there. Because puppy pose can feel quite intense. So come into a rounded up cat. So Rashmi, there's 3 puppy poses. Each time you do them, you need to make sure you've got that position where the knees are under the hip joints and your bottom is up in the air. So puppy pose number 2, we're holding our forearms like this, yeah? And then we walk the knees back a little bit. So forearms there, chest dropping down, bottom up in the air. So, yeah, sorry, not forearms, elbows. We're holding our elbows. That's it. Yeah, that's fine. That's it. Yeah, Rashmi, that's fine. You can go the other way on your mat now because I think you know what you're doing. And you're just really letting your chest dip down towards the floor. Aditi, that one looks very nice for your shoulders. That's it. Good. So the chest dipping down. And whenever you need to come out of it, you come onto hands and knees, you do your rounded up cat and you have a couple of cycles of breath there. because, yeah. So a few breaths in puppy pose, back onto hands and knees, rounding your back in a rounded up cat. So in puppy pose, we're taking that dipping down movement of cat a bit further. So there's one more puppy pose. This one, you're bringing your elbows. So if you look, I'll just show you from this view here, because my elbows are quite close together, if you look at it there. So the elbows, this is the strongest one. So if you don't like it, go back to one of the other two. So we're in this position. Yeah. Yes, so the same position with the bottom up in the air and the hands up in prayer pose, and the elbows are quite close together. So you've got the feeling the elbows are walking in towards each other and away from you. But if that one doesn't work for you, then go back to one of the previous two. Yes, Rashmi, that looks quite good for you actually. Touch your hands in prayer pose over your head. That's it, good. Good, very nice. That looks nice, Nigel, yeah. And Aditi, if that feels a bit much for your shoulder, go back to the previous one because that one looked really nice. And then again, when you've had a few breaths in that puppy pose, then round up again. Come onto hands and knees, do your rounded up cat. Let your head hang, let yourself widen through your upper back. And we're going to be using that rounded up cat to take us up into dog pose. So this is this slightly different way into dog. So from hands and knees, tucking your toes under, you start by rounding your back in cat. And then when you go up, you go straight up rather than back. So you go up right onto the balls of your toes, you're rounding your back to the ceiling. And then you bend your knees and send your hips back. And see how it feels to arrive in dog that way. Good. So you end up in the same sort of dog. You've just gone there a slightly different way. And again, Aditi, just think about that space across the back of your shoulders. Yeah, Rashmi, that actually looks really nice in your shoulders and your arms now. Well done. Good. Have a few breaths in dog pose and see how it feels. And whenever you've had enough in dog pose, come down into kneeling or child pose and just take the weight out of your hands. Because we've got a little sequence we're going to do, but I just want the hands and the wrists to soften and relax for a moment. So we've got a little sequence we're going to do. Elaine, the second thing we come into is walking back towards a squat. So you might just do a bit of rocking on hands and knees forwards and back. I don't want you to push that your knee.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe come into kneeling, up or down kneeling, and just give your hands a little shake out. And we're going to come towards the front of the mat because the first thing we're going to do in this sequence is plank pose. So you need to have enough room behind you on your mat to lengthen out your legs. So you want to have your shoulders over your wrists. You're going to lengthen one leg out behind you, add the other leg into your long, straight plank pose and see how it feels to have a few breaths in plank. Supporting yourself through the bones of your arms, stretching your heels away from you, toes tucked under as much as possible. And then, before it all gets too much, let your knees come down to the floor. Now, Elaine, it may be that you just want to be on hands and knees here with your toes tucked under, rocking forwards and back. The rest of you, what we're going to do from here is just see how it feels to walk the hands in towards the knees, let the knees come away from the floor and start to rock the hips back towards the squat from this position, yeah? So the knees need to come off the floor, Rashmi, that's it. So rocking back towards the squat. It doesn't matter whether your heels reach the floor or not. And just see how that feels for a couple of breaths. And then from here, can you bring yourself back forwards again? So we'll be joining Elaine on hands and knees. And walk your hands forwards. So you come into a long hands and knees position. And then how does it feel to keep rocking your pelvis forwards so you come on into your face up dog? And yeah, you need to make sure you're in a longer hands and knees position so there's space to let your pelvis rock forwards. And you might just be here a couple of times rocking forwards and back, and you don't necessarily need to go all the way into face up dog. And then from your face up dog, rock all the way back into child pose for a couple of breaths. And settle your forehead on the floor. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from child pose, and don't worry, we're going to do this whole sequence 3 times, so don't think it's your only chance to do face up dog. From child pose, you're going to slither forwards on the floor, so you're lying on your belly. So slither forwards onto your belly and have your hands, one hand on top of the other and your head resting on the back of your hands. Give your pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. So yeah, one hand on, yeah, so actually one hand on top of the other rather than, that's it, one hand on top of the other. That's it, good. And your forehead resting on the back of the top hand. And then, yeah, pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. And then just a few times as you exhale, how does it feel to sink into your forearms and lift your head away from the floor? So this movement where we're trying to engage or activate the muscles in the upper back. Good. And do that a few times. So come back down, let a breath come in. As you exhale, sink down into your forearms, lift your head. Very nice. Good. Good. Lovely. One last time. Good. And then from here, from your lying on your belly, come back onto hands and knees and round your back to the ceiling in your rounded up cat. And we're going to repeat this whole little sequence again. So rounded up cat. And then settling your hands down at the front of your mat, so coming into plank pose again. So shoulders over your wrists, lengthening one leg back behind you and then the other leg, seeing how it feels to have a few breaths in this long straight line of plank pose. Stretching the heels away, toes tucked under. And then let the knees come down onto the floor. So laying it like with toes tucked under. You can be doing that little bit of rocking on hands and knees with your toes tucked under. Everyone else, if it feels okay, you're walking your hands in towards your knees, you're picking your knees up off the floor, you're rocking back towards a squatting position. And it doesn't matter whether the heels reach the floor or not. You can just see how that feels for a breath or two. You can even be rocking a little bit on the balls of your feet. And then rock forwards again so that your knees come onto the floor. You can walk your hands forwards so you come into this long hands and knees position. Let's just do a little bit of rounding this time as we go into our face up dog. So long hands and knees, toes tucked under. Round your back to the ceiling. Rock your hips back over your heels. And then this time as you exhale, travel forwards into face up dog, rounding your back to the ceiling. So when you come all the way into face up dog, you can untuck your toes, that's it. Pelvis off the floor, Rashmi, so the arms stay straight, so the pelvis is hanging. You could try that one more time. So reverse the movement. Tucking the toes under, rounding the back, rocking the hips back over the heels, breathing in. Exhaling, traveling forwards again into face up dog. Good. And then this time you're going to rock back into child pose just for a breath or two. And from child pose then slithering forwards onto your belly, having your hands, one hand on top of the other, the forehead resting on the top on the top hand. Give the pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. And then a few times you're doing that, sinking down into the forearms, lifting the head movement. Good. So do that maybe three or so times. So we're going to do this whole little sequence one more time. So maybe one more time, sinking into your forearms, lifting your head. And then come back onto hands and knees, round your back to the ceiling in your rounded up cat. So rounding up in cat. And then preparing yourself to come for the last time into plank pose. So shoulders over the wrists, lengthening one leg back behind you and then the other one. Coming into your long line of plank. 2 or 3 or 4 breaths in plank pose. And then letting your knees come down onto the floor. Elaine, do a little bit of rocking forwards and back here with your toes tucked under. If it feels okay for you, walking your hands in towards your knees, picking your knees up off the floor. So we're heading into our little squat from here. Letting the pelvis hang back. Good. So in this little sequence, we're sort of alternating between lengthening out the front of the body and the back of the body. And then roll back forwards again. So you come back onto hands and knees. This long hands and knees. And then just decide, you could come back to the first way into face up dog where we were just rocking our pelvis forwards. Or if your lower back needs to lengthen out a bit more, you can have your toes tucked under. You can round your back to the ceiling. You can rock your hips back over your heels. And then as you exhale, traveling forwards into face up dog, rounding your back. All the way into face up dog, that's it. So make sure your wrists are under your shoulders. You're sort of hanging off your arms. Your arms are supporting here, the bones of your arms. And then all the way back into child for 2 or 3 breaths in child pose. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And then from child pose, slithering forwards so you're lying on your belly. Last time here, giving the pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. One hand on top of each other, forehead resting on the top hand. And then a few times sinking down into your forearms, lifting your head. Good, very nice, seeing how that feels. And in this one, because we're not doing a huge movement, you can leave your legs, try and just leave your legs very quiet. Let the heels roll out to the sides. Legs and bottom, just sort of quiet and heavy. Good. Very nice. And then from here, you're going to come onto hands and knees. So we're going to, on hands and knees, we'll do that rounded up cat. And this time, we'll take the rounded up cat into dog pose again. And this dog pose will move into a forward bend and up into standing eventually. So hands and knees, rounding your back to the ceiling in rounded up cat. Let a breath come in. Next exhalation, you're going to send your hips up to the ceiling, up onto the balls of your toes. And then let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, bend your knees, send your hips back into dog pose. Walking on the spot, bending one knee at a time, just seeing how dog pose feels. Breaths, and I'm just going to have a look at you in dog, and then from dog, all looks rather lovely. Good, yes, it's looking much nicer through the shoulders, Aditi. I am pleased. From dog pose, you're going to walk your hands in towards your feet. It looks lovely there, Nigel. into a forward bend. See how it feels to be in a forward bend. If your lower back needs some support, bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. You might need your knees quite bent anyway in your forward bend. You want to feel all of the weight in your feet. Let a breath come in. As you exhale, sink into your heels. Roll up into standing. Good. So we've arrived in standing. We're going to do a few sort of, I say loosening up movements, sort of twisty type movements, and some balances in standing. So just arrive for a moment, maybe a little drink if you need it, a little bit of rocking from side to side. So once you've had a drink, whatever you need to do, looking at your feet, settling your feet hip width apart and parallel, and then a little bit of rocking from side to side. Letting the arms hang, letting the shoulders drop. Just giving yourself some time to arrive in standing. So it's a bit like when we come from our backs onto hands and knees. I always think it's a bit like, not that any of us do that at the moment, but when we fly somewhere, you know, part of us is still left wherever we started off, at least for a little while. So little by little, we're arriving in standing. Let's do this one. Let's swing the arms. So we're going to do a few arm swingy things to start with and see how that feels. So let's do this, swinging the arms from side to side. And just remember, so any of these, and Sheila, particularly for you, any of the things we're doing now, if they feel a bit much for your back or your body, then just, you know, go easy. Okay, so this is sort of swinging the arms from side to side. No, that's all of us, isn't it? All of us coming into a swinging twist. Let's stop that for a moment. Let's just see how it is to swing the arms side to side. So the arms cross in front of us and swing out to the sides, and we can keep changing the cross of the arms. And this obviously could take us, well, we could swing, let's just swing all the way and give ourselves a hug with the right arm on top. That's as far as we're going to go. Just have a hug for a couple of breaths. Let the shoulders drop. And then you're going to come back to swinging your arms again, and then give yourself a hug with the left arm on top. So again, swing the arms out to the sides, cross the arms in front of you, and then cross your left arm in front and give yourself a hug for a couple of breaths. And then release your arms. You don't have to come sideways on your mat, but what you're going to think about now, just so you can see me, is this one where we now swing the arms forwards and back, so the arms can come up and then they swing back. So just, yeah, how is it to swing the arms that way? So sometimes this swinging back movement can be quite challenging for us. So just, yeah. So this is just the arms swinging, but we could actually get the whole body moving with this. So just see how does it feel to let the whole body move with this. So as the arms come up, our pelvis comes forwards, and then we can also bend forwards. But if this feels too much, go back to just the arms. And also if you get a little bit out of breath. Now in a moment you're going to just stay in that forward bend, if that's okay. So you can go all the way down, let the arms go, let the head go. If you need to support your spine, bending your knees, resting your elbows on your thighs, then do. Have a couple of breaths in this forward bend. And then sink into your heels, roll back up into standing. And we're going to try that same movement with the feet a bit wider apart. So this time when you swing your arms down in between your legs. So if you're doing this swinging movement, if you're not, Yeah, just see how your back, yeah, what your back thinks about that. So this is I'm sure I've said this to you before in class. And as you come down, it's really nice to bend the knees a lot. This is this wood chopper movement. But you want to keep it safe and comfortable for your lower back. And so again, whenever you just want to stay in the forward bend, then do so. And just be heavy and floppy. In that forward bend with the feet a bit wider. And then from there, sink into your heels, come back up into standing. And we're going to do a little sequence of some mini balances, not the usual one we do. So I was thinking of something like a little bit of variation. So we're going to start off. So maybe start off first of all with deciding which foot you'd like to stand on. Yeah. So both feet settled down, hip width apart and parallel. Maybe a little bit of rocking from side to side, and just making a decision about which foot you'd like to start with as your standing foot. So our first little balance we're going to do, so we're going to bring our weight onto our standing foot. The first balance we're going to do is this little mini tree pose where we cross the front ankle, cross one ankle in front of the other. So we cross the non-standing leg in front of the standing leg. Now it could be that your toes are on the floor, or you could bring your toes onto the outer edge of your standing foot. And you might like to have your hands in prayer pose. So crossed ankles tree pose, just for a breath or two. And then from here, if your toes are not on the floor, let them come down onto the floor, and then draw around the front of your foot with your toes. So your foot comes onto the other side of your standing foot, and you're coming into your just normal mini tree pose now with your foot on your ankle for a couple of breaths. Or you could have some toes on the floor. That's absolutely fine. And then let your toes come back onto the floor, and now you're going to bend your standing knee. And then we're going to trace our toes back around our foot, so we cross the knees over into this sort of eagle leg swan. So we're still balancing on a bent knee. Now from here, how does it feel to then let your arms grow up towards the ceiling? Dropping the shoulders down, good. That feels steady. You could have a breath or two here. And then you could touch the hands in prayer pose over your head, and then bring your prayer pose down in front of your chest. Very nice. And then come down and have a little shake out. So it will be a little bit easier on the side too, so you know what you're doing. So just to be clear, yeah, I think if you weren't clear what we were doing, just ask me, but hopefully it's clear. So come back, standing, feet hip width apart and parallel. We're going to do all of that on side two. So shifting your weight onto your other foot now. And first of all, it's this crossed ankle tree pose. So our non-standing leg, that ankle is coming in front of the standing leg, and we've got the toes either on the floor or on the outer edge of our foot. And our hands can be in prayer pose. And we see how it feels to have a couple of breaths here. Our standing knee is straight at the moment, straight but not locked. And then let your toes come onto the floor and draw around the front of your foot with your toes. So now you can bring the sole of your foot onto your ankle in our sort of normal tree pose. You could have a few toes on the floor if you feel a bit unsteady. Good. And then let your toes come onto the floor if they're not there. Bring your foot off your ankle and bend your standing knee. So we're coming on into this eagle leg swan where our standing knee is bent. And then trace around your foot again. So you're now crossing your leg, your knee over the bottom knee. Let your shoulders drop, and then if you like, take your arms up towards the ceiling. Good, let the shoulders feel soft and relaxed. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then touch your hands in prayer pose over your head. And then bring your hands down in front of your chest. Well done, everyone. Good. Come down. Have a little bit of a shake out. Very good. Okay. Now, hold on a minute. Where are we? Okay. Yes. Come down into a forward bend. So feet hip width apart and parallel. Roll down into your forward bend. Have a couple of breaths there. And then being in your forward bend, I would like you, so stay bending forwards. I'd like you to walk your feet a little bit wider apart so they come to being as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. That's it. And then in this forward bend with your feet a bit wider apart, I'd like you to have a little play around with bending one knee and bending the other. So how can you bend one knee? That's it. Bend the other. Good. So yes, as some of you are doing, so you can do this by swinging your pelvis a lot from side to side, bending one knee. But you can also do it by not swinging your pelvis. So see if you can do a smaller movement now. So you bend your knee and your pelvis just tilts a bit to one side. It doesn't have to swing. That's it. Good. Just release in the center, let your head go, let your arms go. And then let a breath come in, sink down into your heels, roll up into standing. Keep your feet as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. No, yes, that's it, I do mean that. And then when you arrive in standing, you can come into these side lengthening movements. So your bottom arm is heavy and floppy. Yeah, so one arm is heavy and floppy, the other arm is reaching up. You're shifting your weight, if you like, into the reaching up side. So you're shifting your pelvis over to that side. And just move from side to side in these. We're going to do these in a moment and we're going to stay in them, but here we're just going to move from side to side. And then whenever you've done these, I should probably do these forever. Whenever you've done enough of these, you feel you've evened yourself out, just come and give your legs a bit of a shake out. And we're going to come into a twisting movement where we have our feet. If I just show you, so we're going to have our feet this distance apart. And so I think you all know this one. So we come forwards with our feet this wide apart. We're bending our knee, but this is with not swinging the pelvis, just letting the pelvis tilt. We're bending our knee and we're turning away from the bent knee side. Now to take your arm up, you can sweep your hand up the front of your chest towards the ceiling. See how that feels. So then you can try the other way. You bend the other knee. You turn away from the bent knee. If you like, you sort of sweep your hand up your arm towards the ceiling. And you just try this a couple of times, 2 or 3 times to each side. Make sure your weight is in your feet. So your fingertips, Aditi, I think your weight could be a bit more in your heels. Lovely, that's it. That's it, good, good. Rashmi, you want to try and have your spine in the center between your 2 feet rather than going off to the side. Yeah, so I think your hand needs to be a bit further forwards on the floor. That's it. So you're trying to feel your spine is sort of right in, yeah, in between in the center. Good. Good. That's it. And just make sure that top hand, when you sweep your hand up, Helen, that your palm faces forwards. Yeah, that's it. Good. That's nice, Rashmi. Good. Good. Lovely. So yes, do maybe 3 times from side to side. And then let yourself flop forwards in the center. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing, keeping your feet. Yes, keeping your feet as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And then come back into this side lengthening movement, but stay here. Stay here for maybe 2 or even 3 cycles of breath. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leaving you. And then swapping to the other side, 2 or 3 cycles of breath. And then having a little bit of a shake out. So we're going to come back into some of those balances, and let's see. I'm going to give you 2, no, I think we'll do both of them actually. So it might be, we're going to do tree pose, and then we are going to do this half lotus tree pose. So some of you might need a belt to hold on to, yeah, if it's not, and so a belt or a scarf. So maybe just get those things to hand, especially if you have to go search around your house. Get those things to hand if you need that for the half lotus tree. We're going to do normal tree pose to start with, but it's probably better just to be organised. So, and then again, once you've got your belt or your scarf or whatever to hand, then just settle your feet down, hip width apart and parallel. And come back to a little bit of swaying, a little bit of settling. So just settling in standing. We just want to really have this sense of ourselves in standing. We don't need the belt yet for the first one because we're doing normal tree pose. Good. Okay, so just a little bit of settling in standing, choosing which foot you're going to stand on. So we're going to do our normal tree pose. We're going to shift our weight onto our standing foot, and then wherever you're going to bring your foot, it could be on the side of your ankle, could be just above your knee, it could be up towards the top of your thigh. And then just gather the hands into prayer pose at your breastbone. Letting yourself settle. And so remember for last week, and I think the week before as well, we had this focus of having our awareness in the belly in these standing poses, these standing balances. So this sense of the belly as the centre of ourselves. So even as we maybe take our arms up if we're feeling steady, we still keep this sense of the belly at our centre. Feel the breath, we let the shoulders drop. Have a few breaths there. See if you need to use the wall to help you stay steady. The hands can gather back into prayer pose at the breastbone. Very nice, beautiful everyone. Yes, come down when you need to. Have a little bit of a shake out. So if you are having a bit of a wobbly time, then always, you can move and stand by the wall. Have your standing foot as the foot next to the wall. Otherwise, it's just hard to use your other hand to catch your foot. So let's move on to the second side of tree pose. Again, settling your feet down in standing. And then when you're ready, starting that process of shifting your weight onto the other leg. And then just wherever you're going to bring the raised leg onto the ankle, the heel can come into that sort of hollow just above the knee joint, or the heel can come up towards the top of your thigh, pressing onto your leg. Gather the hands into prayer pose and just see we have this intention of settling, and the intention is what matters. Can we sense the belly? Can we sense the centre of ourselves? Even as we grow the arms upwards, we have that sense of support from our centre. The arms can go up to the ceiling if you like. Shoulders staying relaxed, looks really fabulous. hands can come back to prayer pose at the breastbone. So come down, have a little shake out. And this is when you would maybe need your belt. So we're going to come in to see how our half lotus tree pose is today. Now, if you're going to use the wall and a belt, you need to stand on the foot furthest from the wall so that you can use the other hand to help catch the belt or your foot. There's a few different arm positions in this, so maybe I'll just show you what these possibilities are. So there's, once you've caught your foot, the other arm can come up. I wouldn't do this as quickly as I'm showing you. The other arm can come round your back. If your foot can stay there without needing to be held, you can take both arms up. And then I've got that to come to hands into prayer pose. So these are just a few possibilities, okay? So you don't get bored. But obviously, the main thing in this one is this organisation of one of our legs into this half lotus, which you may need the belt for. If you're holding onto your foot, make sure you hold around the top of your foot, not across the sole of your foot, because that helps. That's it, that helps your knee drop down towards the floor. And so in this one, this is quite a strong feeling of opening through the front of the hip joint. Yeah? If you're using a belt, you want to sort of hold on the belt quite, or a scarf, hold quite close down to your ankle. So the belt is around your ankle. You're holding quite close down to the ankle, so you haven't got this big sort of tail of a belt. And then it's taking your arm up towards the ceiling. So we've got the knee dropping down towards the floor, the arm reaching up towards the ceiling. Shoulder quiet and relaxed. Well, if that, yeah, taking your arm up makes you feel wobbly, then absolutely fine. The other position that's nice is to take the arm around the back of the body. It might be that your fingertips can come towards your elbow of the other arm. And then we breathe back towards that arm behind us. So there's that feeling of quietening and softening through the front of the body. Good. Very nice. Lovely. Looks fabulous. Yes, and if you can keep your foot in place without holding onto the belt or your foot, you can take both arms up, but you may well have had enough time in your balance by now. That's lovely, Rosie. Beautiful. Good. Yes, well done, everyone. Come down and have a little bit of a shake out. And then we'll try the other side. So when you're ready, it's going to be shifting the weight onto the other foot. So again, if you need to use the wall, remember you're standing on the foot furthest from the wall so that you can use your hand to support you. Because we need the other hand to catch the foot or to catch the belt. And so just again, remember, when you're catching your foot, you're holding around the top of your foot. You're not holding around the sole of your foot, because that sort of is almost going against the movement we're trying to find. So it's this opening movement through the hip joint. The knee is dropping. We're using a belt. We're holding really close to the ankle. Other arm, can the other arm come up? So the knee drops. Can we take our arm up towards the ceiling? Good. Can we have a few quiet breaths here? And then there's the option of the arm going around the back of ourselves, which is really nice. Maybe it comes towards our elbow. We have this point of reference across the back of our body that we can breathe back towards. And it may be, if you don't need to hold onto your foot or a belt, that you can take both arms up towards the ceiling. And let's do come down in your own time. Oh, have a little shake out. So we've just got one more balancing thing I would like us to do here. But first of all, we're going to come into a forward bend. Just watch me for a moment because it's a little sort of mini sequence here. We're going to go down into a forward bend with our feet hip width apart. We're then going to walk our feet as wide as the mat. And in this forward bend, you're going to actually come into your eagle arms in your forward bend, yeah? And you're going to swap your arms over in your forward bend. So Helen, there you go, there's a challenge. so coming into a forward bend with your feet hip width apart, having a few breaths there. And then walking your feet so they're as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And then in this forward bend, can you cross your arms into your eagle arms when you're in the forward bend? It's actually sometimes a bit easier to wrap your arms around. Those of you who find it hard, yes, that's it. So you cross your arms one way for a breath or two, and then you cross them the other way for a breath or two. Good, and let yourself hang forwards once you've crossed your arms. That's it, good. And then you can obviously uncross your arms and just fold forwards. And then sinking down into your heels, rolling up into standing. We're going to do one more standing balance. So maybe have a little shake out when you come up into standing. Shake out your legs, shake out your arms. So we did this one last week, which was coming into our eagle balance, having already brought our arms into that position. So we're going to be starting off with feet hip width apart and parallel. Breathing in, taking the arms wide. Let's give ourselves a hug with the right arm on top. And then come on into your eagle arms with your right arm on top. Brilliant. Okay. And then from here, you're going to bend both knees. Keep your shoulders over your hips, and then we're going to cross the left leg over the right leg and come into this balance again. And see how that feels for a few breaths. So we've got a bent right knee that we're balancing on, right foot. Good, letting the shoulders drop. Very nice. Come down, yes, have a little shake out. That balance is always a bit more challenging to stay in because of the bent knee. And then final side. So feet hip width apart and parallel. Breathing in, take the arms wide. Exhaling, give yourself a hug with the left arm on top. Drop the shoulders down and then bring the arms on into eagle arms in this side. Let the knees bend. And then this time you're crossing the right leg over the left leg. Keeping your shoulders over your hips. Good. How does it feel to balance on this bent knee, leg? Couple more breaths. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And then coming out, a bit of a shake out. So we are going to be coming down onto the ground, out of standing. Now, Elaine, I think you should be at the back of your mat, going down through a forward bend and dog pose. The rest of you, if it's okay, I'd like you at the front of your mats, coming down through a forward bend and a squat. And then we'll be sitting, you know, so this would be quite a good squat to have something under your heels for, if you know that your heels come up, so that you could have a few breaths in the squat. So at the front of your mat, and you'll see why I've got you at the front of your mat in a moment. So you can roll down into your forward bend. And then start to bend your knees forwards over your footprints. Come down into your squat. And at this point, if your heels come up, that would be the point at which to slide something under your heels so that you could stay in your squat for a few breaths. And Elaine, where we're going to go to, so if you've come down through dog pose, where we're going to end up from our squat is using our hands to sit ourselves down onto our bottom and lengthening our legs out in front of us. So you could come sit like this as well, with your feet towards the end of your mat. And yeah, lean back on your hands and give your legs a little bit of a roll out. And then here, swing around this way. Here, we're going to bend one knee and stand that foot on the floor. So the heel is quite close in towards you, but there's a bit of distance between the foot and the thigh. And you can hold around your leg and just let your spine grow up so you feel sort of long and tall here. And then we're going to do a little bit of a twist. So we're going to turn away from this bent leg. So you can keep holding around the leg with the same arm. Turning away from that leg, your fingertips can be on the floor behind you. And then you can also turn towards this leg. For a couple of breaths. And then come back to the center, lean back on your hands and swap your legs over. So bend the other leg. So again, that foot is standing on the floor. The heel, if possible, is quite close into you, but there's a hip width distance between your leg and your foot and your other leg. So come back to here, hold around your leg and let your spine grow upwards. And then the same thing, we turn away from this leg. So we turn towards the long leg, you keep holding around this leg. So these movements are all about sort of freeing up the rib cage, the spine between the shoulder blades. And then we turn towards this bent leg. And then come back to the center, lengthen both legs out on the floor. We're just going to do one more little variation of these twists before we make our way into lying down. So come back to your first bent knee. So bend that knee again, but this time cross it over your long leg. Now, you can either stay like this, or if it's comfortable for you, you can just shift your weight a little bit so you bend that bottom leg. And then you're sitting down on the inside. So this foot is standing on the floor, so it's not actually cow legs. Feels quite similar. So either be in this position or in this position with the bottom leg along, whatever is more comfortable. But you want to be able to feel that you can, both sit bones are on the floor. And then we're going to be turning towards the top leg. And this hand, we're thinking actually more now about just sort of growing long and tall. This elbow can come onto the inside of your knee and your hand faces forwards. And again, the other fingertips of the other hand are just helping to support you behind you. And this hand is in a mudra. This is Abhaya mudra. It's this gesture of fearlessness. We can just think about the hand being soft, the center of the palm softening. And I realised I have turned completely the wrong way. I should have been turning towards that top leg. So if you've copied me, then yes, so I should have been turning towards that top leg. Quite sure I've managed to do that. So I was just thinking, yes, in this one, what you want to feel is that your hip is dropping down towards the floor and your elbow is just helping to stretch that knee away a little bit. And then let's untwist, lean back onto the hands, lengthen both legs out. Give the legs a little bit of a roll. So my excuse is that when we cross over this midline of our body, our brains get very confused. So from here, bend the other knee. And then that's it, bring your foot onto the floor and then cross your leg over bottom leg. And then again, just decide, are you going to keep your bottom leg long or are you going to bend that bottom knee? So I sort of shift over to the side, but then at this point need to feel that both sit bones are in contact with the floor, even if this one's a bit lighter. And then contrary to what we did on the other side, we are this time going to turn towards the top leg. Turn towards the top leg. And this elbow comes onto the outside. That's what was going wrong, the outside of your thigh. And we're thinking here about the hip dropping down into the floor and the elbows just sort of encouraging the knee away a little bit. Can we feel long and tall through the spine, soft through the hand facing forwards? Let the breath come in, let the breath leave us. Good. Yes. In your own time, untwist, lean back onto your hands, give your hands a lengthen out. Don't give your legs a lengthen out. So we're going to be making our way into lying down. But we're going to be doing it with a little bit of rolling backwards. So be towards the front of your mat. And we're going to do this one. So sliding our hands from our feet up towards our knees, looking down at the belly. Yeah. So we're just thinking about how can the back round out. That's it. And then from here, you move on to letting your feet pick up off the floor. Coming to balance on your back with your knees bent and then coming back up again. So we're trying to balance on this sort of middle bit of the back between the rib cage and the pelvis. So we can slide our hands from our feet to our knees. We can let the feet pick up. We can balance on the back and then come up again. So perhaps just do this a couple of, Sheila, you might find this is a little bit challenging. You might just want to lie down at this point. If you want to, whenever you're ready, you can try our favourite one where we then lengthen the legs out. At this point, our little Navasana boat pose. And if you can bear it, you can do that one 3 times. So rolling back, let the feet pick up, and then we lengthen the legs out, and we're trying to balance here. And breathe. Okay. Oh. One last time if you can bear it. So rolling back, letting the feet pick up, letting the legs out. And then this time we can all lie down onto the back. And when you arrive on your back, just lie quietly and let your breath move through you. You just lie however you want to lie. Let your breath move through your body. It would be quite nice to bring your hands onto the front of your belly to feel the movement of your breath in the front of your body. And it can all feel really sort of spacious and free after those rolling down movements. You can let your head ease to the right and to the left. And then finding a comfortable place to settle your head in the centre. We're just going to do a couple more simple movements and then a little bit of breathing on our backs. So if your legs are long, bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor. Come to a little bit of tilting your knees to the right and to the left. Seeing how that feels. And then come to a little bit of tilting your pelvis up and down on the floor. So tipping your pelvis towards your head and away from your head. So in one direction, you're flattening out your lower back. And in the other direction, you're letting your lower back arch away from the floor a little bit. And if you feel that you would like to take it would be the tipping the tailbone off the floor, that part of the movement on into bridge pose, you could do. You just do a couple of very sort of easy bridge poses where you're really not pushing it, you're just seeing how the movement feels. If you've done a couple of very easy bridge poses, you then might like to fold your knees into your chest. Just hold around the top of your knees. You could have a couple of quiet breaths there. You could also take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. Or you could lengthen them out on the floor. So we are going to settle down now. A little bit of breathing. So you can lie with your legs long. I think Rosie's got a cushion or so. If you've got a cushion under the back of your knees, if you're in your bedroom or in your lounge and there's cushions, it can be really nice to lie with a cushion under the back of your knees. A couple of big exhalations. We're going to revisit the breathing. I think we did it sitting down last Monday, where we touch our thumb to our fingers each in turn. So we do this in one hand and then the other. And it's just a way of helping to keep our focus with our breathing. Yeah, a sort of simple way of keeping our focus with our breathing. So we're going to do this with the right hand first. So just have the arms on the floor beside you and bring your attention into your right hand. And you're going to touch the pad of your thumb to the pad of your little finger and let a breath come in and let a breath leave you. And then you touch your thumb to the pad of your ring finger and you let a breath come in and you let a breath leave you. And then on to your middle finger, letting a breath come in, letting a breath leave you. And then on to your index finger, feeling a breath come in, feeling a breath leave you. And then go back down through the three fingers again, so you end up at the little finger. So in your own time, a cycle of breath with the thumb touching each finger. And when you finish, just let that hand rest. Just have a quiet breath or two, and then we'll move on to the second hand in a moment. So in your own time, bringing your left thumb to touch your left little finger, the pad of the thumb on the pad of the finger. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Then onto the ring finger, left thumb pad touches the pad of the left ring finger. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Onto the middle finger, a cycle of breath. Onto the index finger. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And then in your own time, back down the fingers, ending up at the little finger, a cycle of breath for each finger, an inhalation and exhalation. And when you finish, just letting that hand go. You can either let your arms rest on the floor beside you, or bring both hands onto the front of your body, onto your belly, your low front ribs. So gathering your attention into the sensations of your breath in your body, wherever you feel the breath most clearly. Letting the breath flow in, letting the breath flow out. Feeling the contact of your body with the ground beneath you. Maybe let your awareness travel down through the back of your body, feeling the back of your head in contact with the ground, the back of your shoulders, your elbows, maybe your hands if they're on the floor, and then down into the back of the body, feeling the back of the rib cage in contact with the floor. Maybe some of the vertebrae touch the ground, some of them don't. Down through the back of the waist to the back of the pelvis. And then down through the legs, feeling whichever points of the legs or the feet touch the ground. Feeling the air on your skin. And just for these last few moments before I ring the bowl, aware of any sounds you can hear both near and distant. It's the presence of other people, of animals, birds outside. And just taking a moment also to notice how you feel inside of yourself. So hopefully through practicing yoga, we feel a little bit perhaps just more spacious, more peaceful, more at ease. So thank you, everyone. You can carry on lying down if you like.